Welcome back, everybody, to this week's ATL Baseball Podcast, Episode 7. I'm your host, Mike Shepard. I'm joined today by Jeff Moyer from Reinhardt University. Before we get going, we're going to shout out to our sponsor, lineupcards.com. Lineup Cards will print custom 4-part lineup cards for you. They'll do 11x7 dugout cards for softball and baseball teams. It's easy. Visit lineupcards.com. You can submit your team info and logo. They'll print a roster on the cards for you if you want. Don't worry, you'll get an email proof to review before anything else is printed. Check those guys out over at lineupcards.com. We've been using them for quite some time now, and they do a really good job. So without further ado, Jeff, how we doing today, buddy?
Mike, Shep, how are you, man? Glad to be here. What do people call you on here? They call you Shep, Mike? What do they call you?
I mean, it depends who's on for the interview. It's
All right, we're going Shep.
Yeah, I mean, this is the 7th one. I think I've known 6 of the 7, so most people are calling me Shep, and even getting introduced to new people, like I get introduced to Shep, so nobody calls me Mike, so keep it Shep. I mean, again, I told you I'd rather have this like a conversation between two friends at a bar over a beer instead of, like an interview. I think it's much more relaxed, and I can get your guard down and get you to say stuff that's not coach speak. So, that
Good luck.
that's my goal. No, I mean, not you. You're too calculated. You're too calculated. So, with your tweets, with what you say on a pod, with everything, it's just calculated, and just let you know.
Chess, not checkers, Shep.
That's a great series, by the way, with a great quote. So, but you can't bullshit a bullshitter, Jeff. So that's why you never get that stuff by me. Anyone else, maybe. But anyways, Jeff, for all the people out there that are listening that don't know you, go ahead, introduce yourself, talk about where you've been, where you're at now, and a little bit of your coaching journey.
Yeah, Jeff Moyer. I'm in my 12th year coaching overall. This is my 10th year coaching at the college level. I've got a unique experience between playing and coaching, from coaching at the high school level, coaching at the college level. I played at 3 different levels during college baseball: Division II, junior college, Division I. So it's given me a unique outlook on the recruiting process, which we'll get into, I'm sure, here soon. But after high school, I committed to a Division II high school or Division II college, Palm Beach Atlantic University down in West Palm Beach. After a year there, tough year on the field, we only won 7 games. I decided that I was going to transfer. I literally Googled the best junior college in the state of Florida, which is where I was from, and Santa Fe Community College had lost the national championship the year before, so decided to hit up Coach Wiggs and went up there for a workout. He ended up taking me on, so I spent my sophomore season at Santa Fe, and then I had a really good year offensively, and I pretty much had my pick of the litter where I wanted to go, but it was narrowed down to Georgia State, Florida State, and Mississippi State. Bouncing around those few years, I decided that it was probably best for me to not move to a third city in 3 years. So I stayed in Gainesville, ended up playing my last 2 years at the University of Florida. Great experience there. Obviously, we were number 1 in the country both years I was there. We lost the national championship in 2011 to South Carolina, but got to make 2 World Series trips when I played there. After I got done playing at Florida, I knew I wanted to get into coaching at some capacity. And it was something that I had prayed about. If I wasn't drafted, I was going to take that as my sign to get right into coaching. So draft came and went, and I got the opportunity to coach at the high school in my hometown for a year. After that, Jason Beck, who was at Southeastern at the time, asked me if I wanted to get into coaching at the college level, and I thought, why not? So I was a grad assistant at Southeastern University down in Lakeland, Florida, powerhouse NAI now. After 2 years there, I took the trip and moved up to Atlanta, Georgia for a volunteer spot at Georgia Gwinnett College. Long story short there, Brad Stromdahl was the recruiting coordinator when he was recruiting me at Georgia State. We crossed paths again when Southeastern came up and played Georgia Gwinnett in the opening round. And he said, hey, when you finish your master's, come up here and come work for me. So I held him to it. spent 4 years at Georgia Gwinnett from 2016 to 2019. We made two Final Four appearances in 4 years there. After that, Coach Stromdahl went back to Georgia State, and then I took the job here with Jonathan Burton at Reinhardt, and I'm in my fourth season here at Reinhardt. That's kind of how I ended up here. The baseball world's small, and um, Coach Burton got the job down here 6 years ago, and it took him a few years to get me hired, but we got it done. And after 7 years of being a volunteer coach, I got my first full time gig. So we're happy for that.
It's definitely a journey, that volunteer to part time plus now I got a meal plan and living, and it's kind of like you just build yourself up little by little, and every little thing you get added on, even if it's like, oh, I got a meal plan this year, like it's like such a win as a
Makes
coach.
it
You know what I
when
mean?
you're like, yes, I don't got
Yeah,
to spend that.
yeah,
I'll
man, yeah,
cover my
man.
car payment. So
And then when you finally get like the full time job, you're like you know that all the grinding doesn't stop, but you expect this to slow down a little bit, but it just doesn't. Like
no.
you're always. I mean, that's just kind of the life of the coach,
Well,
and
and this is my 10th year. I've been a volunteer for 6 of those 10 at the college level, and my job's exactly the same now as it was
oh
as a
yeah,
volunteer and a
oh
grad
yeah,
assistant as it is full time. You just have a little bit more responsibility, maybe, but job
yeah.
title
And
doesn't change.
you're still working camps, and you're still driving everywhere, and it's just
Yep.
it's. I mean, it's what we sign up for, and it's what we love to do, and whatnot. So you've been so many different levels, playing and coaching. Given your choice of any division, any level, dream scenario, what would you want? Because you've played and coached in different levels. So where would you want to end up? Just level wise.
Well, it's funny you say that because I think personally for me it's changed over time. When I got into coaching, I obviously wanted to be a head coach. I wanted to coach at the Division 1 level. Um, but kind of as I grew into different roles within coaching in some of these programs, I kind of found a passion for recruiting and being able to do some things on the side with owning a few small businesses along the way. And I think the passion for being a head coach, it didn't go away, but I kind of enjoyed coaching and being able to do something on my own on the side, which as a head coach, you probably couldn't be able to do. So I don't know that I have the passion to be a head coach anymore. I kind of like my lane as a recruiting coordinator and um, working with hitters and infielders and stuff like that. So I think it changes over time. I don't know that I have a preference on level. I think that boils down to kind of who you are as a person. I think I'm more of a small college person. I mean, you coach at the small college level too. Like relationships are so important, and who you meet and who you know is important. So I like the subdivision 1 level. I think that's kind of where I've been most happy. My job year to year doesn't rely on us winning a certain amount of games or winning the conference or going to a conference tournament. So there's not a lot of stress year in and year out on my job. So there's a lot of job security. So I think it's all dependent upon on what you want individually. I don't have a preference of level, but I think the subdivision 1 level for me is kind of been a little bit of a sweet spot. It gives me freedom to be with the family, but I know there's times where you got to go out and grind and hit the recruiting trail and stuff like that. So but I think it's just a personal preference there.
Yeah, I mean it's about finding the right fit for you and your
Yeah.
family, and as you get older and you have kids, and now you have kids and you're married, that it's not just about what Jeff wants anymore, right? Like it's
Yeah.
where your wife's at and where you guys want to raise a family, and that kind of takes us into our first topic today of finding the right fit
Yeah.
in a school for an athlete coming up, trying to figure out where they're going to go to college, when it's going to happen. It's stressful. It's one of the hardest things to do. Um, so when you talk about finding the right fit and your three criteria, which may be different than what
Sure.
I would tell a kid or another college coach. But talk a little bit about what you mean when what finding a right fit means to you.
Yeah. Well, first off, just, everybody's opinions are different. And, one of the things I talk about a lot is, parents that are seeking advice on the recruiting process, don't just listen to one person. Listen to Shep, listen to Moyer, listen to whoever you hear out there and take bits and pieces and kind of make it your own. So, you can find a lot of good from a lot of different people. Just make sure those are trusted resources. But for me, the first criteria of finding the right fit is you want to go somewhere where you're going to play. But I think in the recruiting process, trying to get those offers and figure out, hey, how am I going to catch some traction? I think the first thing that you need to do is sit down with three coaches that you trust the most. That could be a travel coach, an instructor, a high school coach. It could be anybody. So sit down with those three coaches and say, hey, Shep, insert kid from the Atlanta Lightning. What level of college baseball do you think is the best for me? And those coaches are going to be honest because they want you to find a fit at the next level. So once you have those fit, from each of those coaches, that kind of gives you, a level to kind of dial in on, whether that's Division II, NAI, junior college, stuff like that. So, finding what level people that have seen you play the most think you fit at is most important, because I feel like that's how you're going to catch the most traction. Um, from there, I think you need to sit down as a family and, decide, hey, what area of the country, what states do I feel comfortable either moving to or playing in to play college baseball? If you're an Atlanta area kid and you don't want to move to the Midwest, maybe if a Midwest school reaches out, maybe that's not the right fit for you because you don't want to be far away from home. So, I think finding the right distance from home is most important, because you could get an offer from North Dakota, but are you going to go to North Dakota to play baseball? I don't know. And then the third thing is, your intended major. I don't. I think that's something that you should never compromise on. If you want to study engineering or you know, um, one of those intricate majors that not every school offers, I don't think you should be reaching out to schools just to go play baseball there, because at some point, baseball's going to end and you're going to have to rely on that education that you got while you were playing baseball. So, just to kind of summarize all that, once you find the level that those coaches have, recommended you be the best fit at. You've decided what state or region of the country you feel comfortable going to, and then what major you want. I think you should start reaching out to those schools in that area of the country. So for example, for me at a high school, I know I wanted to play in the state of Florida. I knew I was probably a Division II junior college player. Those were the schools I was reaching out to. If a school from Georgia called, I probably wasn't going to take the offer because I wanted to be close to home. So, once you have the level, the area, or the states you want to play in the major, that's when you can start reaching out to those coaches, and I feel like you'll make a whole lot. Um, you'll get more traction in your recruiting process.
So a couple different things on what you said. I think a lot of that is great advice. Um, different, a little bit different than how I word it or how I give it, but
Sure.
I don't disagree with any of it. I think my question for you is, let's talk about timeline, because for our players, and it's not just our players, it's so many players out there everywhere. They don't really know when things should happen or when they're supposed to happen or when it's okay to happen and whatnot. Because
I think the timeline is dependent on what level you think you're going to play at. I mean, the
of
timeline for
course
Division II NAI junior college is different than the Division I timeline. So, um,
it will
you know, I,
actually be closer now though that they changed the rule where
sure,
D1s can't talk to you until August 1st of your junior year,
yeah.
which I think is a good thing. I mean, I can't imagine a Division 1 coach trying to talk to a 14-year-old kid. You
Can't
know,
even drive or has played varsity yet.
he doesn't know what he. I mean, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's that's a W change that they made, in my opinion.
yeah,
Um, And I think what stresses people out the most, just from being on this side of it now and the other side, is it happens so quick. Everything, like once schools start recruiting you, it's about the time that all schools start recruiting. So usually, if you have interest in one, like someone is interested in you, you probably got interest in from a couple other schools.
Yeah.
So it's like, when should they start having those conversations of, your first thing is go somewhere where you can play. So I remember we had the University of Maryland coach on, and he said, I asked him this question, and his answer actually surprised me. I asked him when kids should start worrying about that, and he said the summer going into your junior year, which I think is 1000% accurate. I thought he would have said a lot sooner, but
Yeah.
he basically said, "E- up until that point, you just need to keep getting better.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, so what do you think timeline wise? Talk a little bit about those three things that you went over. Sit down with your family, figure out location, what major you want and what level. When should those happen?
I think that should happen the second you decide college baseball is what you want to do. I mean, if you're playing high school baseball and travel baseball and your parents are spending all this money and you don't want to play college baseball, you're wasting your time. I would think most kids, by their freshman year of college or freshman year of high school, probably want to play college baseball because of how much baseball they played. I think these things you can have these conversations yearly, freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, as you develop and grow as a player. Um, but just being on the same page with your parents. And I think as you progress through high school and you become the player that you're going to be, I would agree. I mean, I think your junior summer is your most important summer because coaches are out. That's the first time they can contact. They know about you, but that's really the first time that you can pop on a circuit is at junior year at the Division 1 level. I think that's the most important year. Look, if I'm being honest, Division 2, NAI, junior college, a lot of that happens senior summer, the summer going into your senior year, and even into that fall. I mean, I've
Division
got
three as well.
yeah, Division 3, yeah. I mean, I've got coaches reaching out to me now about 2025. It's like I'm still recruiting 2024s because they don't know if they want to go D2, NAI, or JUCO. Like
Right.
the timeline for those subdivision 1 levels is probably a year delayed in my opinion because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's be honest. No one wants to go to a Reinhardt or when you were at Oglethorpe as a 2025, they want to carry it out and say, "Hey, I'm gonna chase this D1 thing as long as I can." That even happens with junior college players. I mean, we're signing some junior college players 3 weeks before school starts in August. So, I think that question's kind of relative to what level you're kind of at, or you're kind of, you see yourself going to. I mean, D2, D3, JUCO, NAI. I mean, that's your year of your senior year, summer before, and very rarely do we ever sign. I think I've signed one kid before while he was a junior, and it was just like that's a slam dunk. This is where I want to go. I don't want to go anywhere else, type of
Right.
thing.
They
But
usually have
that,
some sort of like
yeah,
background with you
yeah,
or whatnot. I couldn't agree more. And it's I understand parents' frustration and their concern and the hecticness of everything, because if you're going to school not to play baseball, a lot of these schools they're wanting to apply early. And
yeah,
with baseball athletics, like, coaches just aren't ready to recruit you that early. And I think the conversation with your travel coach and your high school coach, and you know, like you said, three people, a third person that says, "Where do you think I should fit? Like, where do I fit?" is huge, because if they say not Division 1 and you're probably a Division 3 player and all that, then you got to know you're going to get recruited going into your senior year, and a lot of your friends are gonna know where they want to go, um, and in terms of go to school where it's Georgia, Georgia Tech, Georgia State, whatever, whatnot, and you're kind of just waiting, and
Yeah.
it's hectic. I mean, my advice is like, you're good enough to play college baseball. We don't know where, and we don't know what the fit's gonna be, but
Yeah.
you should always have. Well, if I don't go play, that offer doesn't come, or the offers that come aren't a fit for me. You should always have a plan of, if I don't go play
Yeah.
baseball, where would I go?
Yeah.
That
Well,
what
everybody's path is different. Like for me, I played on the Orlando Scorpions, and like I was batting in the 3 hole, and everybody, the 5 hitters batting in front of me and before me, uh, were all going to Division 1, and here I am going to a team that won 7 games at Division 2. Fast forward 2 years, I'm playing with 3 of the guys that were on that team at the University of Florida. So I think that's the biggest thing that parents get caught up in is, they see their son's friends committing and making these decisions, and then they start to like panic a little bit. But it's like, hey, his path is different than yours, just like my path was different than Nolan's, who we ended up meeting down the road at Florida. But you know your path is different. And that's one of the things I talk about the most is like, whatever you and your family decides is best for you, you need to stick to it. It's like building a business plan for your recruiting process. Like, you don't build a business plan and then, oh, well, everybody's doing this, so let me start doing that. No, you stick to your plan. And I think when you start to like just throw stuff on the wall and hope it sticks, I think that's when you can kind of start freaking out a little bit. So I think the biggest thing is just having a plan and sticking to it, and not really worrying about, what everybody else is doing, or Johnny committing here and someone committing there. Like, your time's going to come. And I just think that's when things get stressful as parents and even as a player.
it's been mentioned quite a few times already in the previous episodes of, there's no right answer, and there's no one way to go about the recruiting process, and everybody's journey is different, and that's what makes recruiting so hard, and for coaches on both sides, for people in my position, is how I got recruited and where I went is not the same as Jeff Moyer.
Yeah,
And when you're recruiting kids, if you're bringing in 15 kids a year, I would assume almost all 15 have some type of different parts of their story, like where you found them, you
yeah,
know, who reached out to you. Sometimes there's just so many different ways of, some kids you see at a camp, some kids you see from Twitter, some kids you see an email, and it's just, I don't want to say it's random, because there is, like a certain things that you can do to increase your chances,
sure,
but it's a little random, a little luck, and right place, right time. When you go see that kid, does he have a good day? Or even if he doesn't have a good day, like, are his mannerisms and how he goes about the game good enough that you like his talent, that you're going to come back and watch, and maybe he has a good day the next time. It's just, there's no, do this, then this, then this, and then you're a college baseball player. That's what
yeah,
makes it so hard, and you really have to trust the people you're getting your advice from.
yeah.
um, and it's hard, it's frustrating,
Yeah.
it's
Well, I mean, I think that goes back to your network. I mean, what's your network as a baseball player? Do you know guys like Shep, who know guys all over the country that, hey, I'm talking to these coaches on a daily basis. Hey, I got a player that, plays in Brookhaven, Georgia, and would probably be a good fit for your program. I mean, from being at the small college level, we don't have all the money to travel all over and see players and go to the biggest tournaments. We're probably picking one or two, and we're lucky enough to live in Atlanta, so we get to see a lot of kids. But I think your network as a player is so important, because of, you never know what coach knows the coach that you're playing for. And I would say 90% of the kids that we sign either come from um, relationships that I have or Coach Burton has with other coaches. Like, hey, I know what type of team you have. I know what type of player you're looking for. I think this kid would be great. Or, hey, we've signed a few high school kids from California. That's a relationship that I built through a junior college player that we recruited from out there, just completely random. So, I think the randomness kind of gets can be accredited to the network that you have. We both know the coaching network is it's intertwined as it can be, and
Oh yeah.
when I need players, I'm calling the people that I know and trust the most. And I think as players, you should do the same thing in the recruiting process.
Yeah, and if you see a kid by random, you're gonna call people in that maybe in that area that can. You say, hey, I get a lot of calls from like the Northeast of guys that say, hey, Shep, this kid goes. Do you know anything about this kid? He plays for, it's not even in our program. It'll be
Yeah,
another program or a high school, and they'll say, can you go? I've went and watched a couple kids for coaches that are up in the Northeast. It's been late in the process. They can't see him live, and they're like, get some video of his at bats. Um,
yeah,
and they're like, what do you think? Is this kid like, the kids I've recruited in the past? You know our program. Like, what do you think of this kid? And it's like that kid doesn't know me. I've never had any interaction with that kid, but it's like I've got to give my stamp of approval from a talent standpoint. And then it's like I know this guy, and you got to call this guy to get a character reference because I don't know this kid off the field, but here's what I see on the field. So,
yeah,
and that's one thing that I try to emphasize to kids is you don't you never ever know who's watching, and just because Moyer isn't there that day with Reinhardt on a sweatshirt doesn't mean whatever you do that day, good or bad, isn't going to get back to him, isn't going to get back to another school. Like you're always under the microscope of somebody. And it could be last summer we had a kid that didn't get an opportunity to go play college ball. He didn't think he wanted to play until way too late for us to do anything about it. We tried, didn't happen. Came back and he was going to go to University of Tampa. And it just so happened one of the schools that we were playing, or one of the summer teams we were playing, knew that coach. So he called that coach and said, hey, this kid's actually a pretty good ball player. And, try to get him a tryout. And it's just that guy didn't know that kid, but
yeah,
just by randomness that the kid gets a tryout at Tampa, and, he didn't make the team, but stuff like that. It's crazy how things happen. And like you said, how much of the baseball world is intertwined and
yeah.
somebody knows somebody.
Well, coaches are going to help coaches too. I mean, I
Oh
I
yeah.
can think of multiple times where a kid has told me no, but I know he's a good player, so I'll call this D2 or this junior college and say, hey man, like this is a kid that we thought was going to be pretty good, had a chance to play right away for us, but he thinks JUCOs are out or Division twos are out. Like these are guys that you could probably go after. Like those happen all the time. I mean, I get phone calls from coaches I coached with in the past, like, hey, this kid's leaving our place. He wants to be in the South or he wants to be, in a small school environment. He tried the big school environment. So, it goes back to the you never know who you're going to bump into type of thing. Like, you never know what coach is going to recommend you. You never know who saw you and play at field 7 at Lake Point and is going to recommend you to a coach who maybe doesn't have a need at your position, but he knows this coach has a need at that position. So I think that happens a lot. I mean, I would like to think
It-
coaches help coaches
oh,
too.
1,000%. And a lot more than you and I can even probably think of in our head, like of the times for me, like when I was coaching Oglethorpe, I did it all the time where a really high academic kid, I was going to shoot my shot with him. But once I realized like he's probably too talented for us, then it was like,
Yeah,
if it's too high academic, then I'm reaching out to one of my buddies at a higher academic school saying like this kid is reach out to this kid. Or
yeah,
if he's a D1 kid, then it's like, hey man, this kid told us no, but like you need to, I'm calling, I don't know, Tinkham at Holy Cross saying like you got to reach out to this kid. Like he wants to go D1, he's high
yeah,
academic, and that stuff happens just so much. And
yeah,
especially, I mean, here's the human aspect of it. When you have a kid in your team that you love, right? Like he plays hard. He does all the right things. He's great in the classroom, super respectful, and he's just a good kid. You try, we're human. Like you try even harder, and then you pull on the strings where it's like, Jeff, if you can't take this kid, like, do you have anybody that you know
Yeah.
that you can call to get this kid in a roster? Because this kid's got to play college baseball somewhere. He wants to play. And then, like we talked about before, it comes back to when you talk about with your family what your location is and where you want to go. You you might have to revisit that where you thought you wanted to stay in Georgia, but like you don't have any offers in
Yeah.
Georgia.
Yeah.
And then you say, all right, well, the offers I have are Florida, Tennessee. They're not really great offers, but I got this offer in Iowa. It's a great school. Everything's a great fit minus
The location.
the
Yeah.
location. That's when you sit down and have a conversation with yourself, your parents,
Yeah.
your loved ones, like people that are close to you, and say, where where does
We're
playing
open.
college baseball
Yeah. We're
rank?
open. Yeah.
Do I go to this? And I always tell kids, go play. Like, don't let location, don't let division, or what level it is. If that's your only option to play, and those are your only hangups,
You want to play that bad? Go.
just go try it. Just go
Yeah.
try, and
Yeah.
for a year or two after. I mean, I'm not. You never want to send a kid somewhere to with the idea of transferring, but a lot of times kids realize college is going to be what you make of it, regardless where you're going to
Where it's
college
at.
at,
Yeah.
and you can't. It's really hard to like if you would have went to Florida your first year just to go to school and maybe try and walk on, then you realized uh I can't. I really miss baseball and I didn't make the team. You probably don't end up at Florida again
No.
by going your D2. It's really hard to take a year off and then get back in it. So just tell
Yeah.
kids, just go because college baseball is the most fun 4 years of your life,
Yeah.
and you never get that back.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, going back to the just the human element of it. That's why I feel like those coaches that you're the closest with, those three coaches that I was talking about, they want what's best for you. I mean, those kids that are playing for the Atlanta Lightning or, whatever travel team you're playing for, high school team, those coaches want to see you move on. That's their job, is to help you move on. They're not going to say, "Oh, you're a Division 1 player," when you're not. Like, they want what's best for you. And if you sense that maybe they don't want what's best for you, maybe you're on the wrong high school team or travel team or whatever. But just the human element is so important and that's why I tell like parents and players, like, get the opinions of the people that know you the most, because the people that know you the most want what's best for you. They're not going to steer you the wrong way. So I think that's important. I mean, I would agree. I tend to lean more on, you know getting back to kind of like the area that you go play in. Like, are you a kid that, me, I looking back, I probably could have been an implant anywhere in the country, but I wanted to be closer to home. A priority of mine was my family being able to see me play. And, if I'm being honest, Mississippi State was a whole lot better of an offer. I mean, I had a scholarship offer at Mississippi State and a walk-on offer at Florida, but Mississippi State was a whole lot better at the time atmosphere. And I tell everybody, if Mississippi State were any closer to home, that's where I would have gone. But for me, it was important for me to stay close to home, but just so my parents could see, because they invested so much time in me. But that's not to say my parents would have been upset if I went to Mississippi State or not. But I just think if really being close to home is one of your biggest hangups, some kids don't do well away from home, whether that's socially, academically, or we just depends where. I mean, some kids are from the city and they don't do well in the Midwest or something like that. So I think that's, of the three, that's probably the one that I would probably rank third, is being open to the area, because I truly believe there's a place for every kid to play college baseball. And if you're one of those kids, you may have to go to North Dakota, you may have to go to upstate New York or the Midwest where there's nothing within miles. But if college baseball is what you want to do, then there's a place for you to go. You just literally may have to go.
Yeah, and it's hard because sometimes you don't know how a kid will react in a situation until they're there, right?
Yeah.
Like some kids will tell you, I don't want to be in a small city, this, that, and the other. I don't want to, and then their only offer is a small city school. And then they accept that and then they go and they're like, oh, I was just wrong. Like, because 17, 18, 16-year-old boys, like, we don't know what we want and it's ever changing. And we're trying to make decisions on our future for 50, 60, 70 years in the future that we just don't have enough information on to make it. So you have to do the best you can with, like when you're deciding a major, how many times, whatever the stat is out there of how many times people change major on average. Cause
Or how many don't use their major when they graduate? Yeah.
yeah, like I've been in a classroom, I don't know, I substitute taught, for a year and that was a couple times a week. Other than that, I haven't used my undergrad and master's degree in a classroom. Like, I think a
Yeah.
lot of those things that I learned, I've taken to coaching.
Yeah. Well, what you're getting at is there's a level of figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
if I mean, when I moved from southeastern Lakeland, Florida to Georgia, I mean, I packed up a U-Haul and was moving where I knew one person. That was the head coach I was going to work for. That was the August of 2015. I mean, here we are 9 years later. I'm married. I've owned three homes here. Like, I've got two kids. Looking back, I didn't know where I'd be at 17, 18 years old, where I am at 34. Like, if I would have known that, I'd have been more apt to, like, oh, hey, I'm open to leaving Georgia or Florida, or I'm open to leaving wherever I'm at. I mean, so, there's a level of figured out, which a lot of that too it comes from growing up and maturing. But,
Mhm.
I mean, to your point, you know, you don't know until you don't know, So, if you're trying to find a place to play college baseball and you're a little apprehensive, but it's your only option, like, I'm a firm believer that God opens and closes doors. And, if he didn't want you to go play there, that door wouldn't be open. And if you go, maybe there's a reason that you're going there. And, that's when you figure out kind of who you are. I didn't really figure out who I was until I left home. And I was never more than 2 hours away from home for up until I turned 25. So, there's just a lot of things you figure out when you take that leap and, I'm going to go try and figure this out.
And now we're having a conversation of life, and I'm here for it because I couldn't agree more that you have to get away from home. You have to go through adversity. You have to, I mean, for lack of a better phrase, like find out what you're made of
Yeah.
in tough times. And when you don't know anybody and you're like, okay, I'm sitting here on a Friday night in Waleska, Georgia, and I don't know a soul, and I'm miserable because I need some human interaction. But I like, what do I do? It's like Jeff could sit and sulk and be like, "This sucks. Like, I want to go back and coach at home, or I don't want to coach at all because I'm so far away from home and I can't find anything." Or I could just say, "All right, Jeff, like we're gonna learn how to go out and be social and how to meet people and how to
Yeah.
make, we talk about making college what you want. It's more than just college. It's making life what you want. And if you don't like your situation, what are you doing to change it? It's
Yeah.
the same thing when a kid's developing and he asks you, where do I fit? And you tell him Division 3. I'm not a Division 3 player. Why do you say that? Okay, let's pull up some perfect game, PBR. I don't want to mention perfect game. I know,
Yeah.
I don't want to get in an argument with you. Um, these are the kids that are going D1, and these are what their metrics are, and these are what your metrics are.
Yeah.
And as a kid, you can look and say, Coach Shep doesn't want what's best for me. He's telling me to go D3. I'm not a D3 player. Or you can say, wow, I really didn't like what I just heard. I now need to change it. Like I need to pick up some weighted balls. I need to
Yeah.
change my diet. I need to work out. I need to.
Well, I think too. I mean, if you tell a player that and they don't like D3, let's be honest. I mean, I think if you're playing Division II, NAI, Division III baseball, if that's where you're going, I think you can find a junior college to play at. What better place to bet on yourself than junior college? You know, you're playing every day. I mean, when I was at Santa Fe, it was thank God Florida had a home game and our head coach was a Florida baseball alum, so we had that day off. But it's a grind. That's where you figure out kind of who you are. But kind of going back to the thing that stuck out about what you were saying of kind of growing is we as coaches tell our players all the time you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. There ain't nothing more uncomfortable than packing up a U-Haul, moving to a state you don't know anybody in, and having to figure it out. I mean, Strom wrote me a $2,500 check when I moved up there, and then it was like, okay, you got to figure it out. Like this covers rent, and luckily I owned my car at the time. Like this will cover expenses for a little while, but there was no right or wrong way of doing it. But when your back's against the wall, you're going to be a fight or flight kid unless you're just that's not your personality. But people, they'll figure it out. I mean, we all do. But you're what the one thing that I know is if you really want something, you'll find a way to make it work, no matter how it is. I mean, that's just how it is. And if you want to play college baseball and you have to go to a state or a city or area of the country where you don't know anybody in or nothing about, like, go figure it out.
That's funny because I remember when I was in Iowa and I was ready to give up college coaching altogether because in order to make ends meet up there, I took like an admissions job at the school I was at. So I was doing missions full time and miserable. I hated it. I was ready just to give it up, but I knew somebody from summer baseball and they referred me to Geo, and it was like, Geo wanted me to come down for an interview, and my little Ford Escort, and I drove down here. But when he was asking like what days work, I was like praying he was good to have me down after we got paid next, because it was like,
Can't afford to get down there.
yeah. And I remember trying to play it cool about like the hotel, like, okay, I'm gonna stay, like, are you gonna get the hotel for me? Like, do I got to give my card up for incidentals because they're gonna put $150 hold on it? And if they do, like, I didn't tell them this, but like, if they do that, brother, like, that thing's getting declined, or I'm not getting gas on the way home, because that like,
Yeah.
it takes a couple days for the hotel
You better
ticket.
hire me so I can stay here.
Yeah, like, they're like, hey, are you gonna hire me because I'm not going back up north? And you mentioned you packing up a U-Haul. Good for you, because I packed up my Florida Escort, and that's it. That's all I actually, I didn't even pack up my Ford Escort, because from the time that I accepted the job until the time that I moved down here, it was like 3 weeks maybe. In that 3 weeks, my little Ford Escort just blew up. I had no savings or down payment or anything to buy. I would have bought a used car, obviously. All I could do was literally find out what dealerships would offer a anything that was no down payment.
Insert Kia Soul, baby.
That's why I drive around a Kia Soul. That's 1000% why,
Yeah.
because
Well, it just goes back to like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna do whatever I gotta do, no matter what I drive, no matter
yeah,
where I
man. And
live. Like, it don't matter.
and now that I paid it off, I'm like, I don't want another car payment. Like, I'm I'm
Facts.
just I'm gonna drive that Kia Soul until,
It's got no soul.
yeah, dude. And it's the only one I could get. It was like 6 years, no down payment. It was, they didn't have any other color in that one I could get but red. So here I am driving around, me and my hamsters in the back, just,
We went to Memphis in that thing.
bro, it's been great, you know what I mean? And yeah, great. I mean, of course, it's not like the most manly car, and it's not like,
Who cares?
yeah, I know, but it's, you just do whatever you have to do, man. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, you make it
Well, we
happen.
talk about it as coaches, but it's no different as players either.
No,
There's just,
no,
I think there's a level of pride that comes with, oh, I'm committing to Reinhardt or, insert whatever school that doesn't have the Power 5 logo on it. Like, people take that as like a shot to their pride, but why? Like, you're already one of a very small percentage of people moving on to play college baseball. Isn't that why you got into this? Because you wanted to go play college baseball? Ask any kid when they go play college baseball, when they take the field, are they thinking about, oh, I'm taking the field at the University of Florida? No, they're taking the field to play a game of baseball. Like, there may be a few more fans in the stands, or maybe, a little bit better venues, but when it all boils down to it, you're playing a game, and you're playing the game that you grew up, falling in love with. And I think that's what matters. And look, I've got a 6 month old son, and I don't know what college baseball is going to look like in 15, 16 years when he starts going through this, but it's easy for us to say these things, having been through it, been on the coaching side of things, and we see it. Like, I talk to so many kids that go to Division Ones, and they had an offer from us, and they end up going to a Division 1, and then a semester or a year goes by and they hate it, and they're just like, I'm gonna hang it up. It's like, well, what if you would have went somewhere where somebody really, really wanted you and wanted you to be a big piece of what they were building or the future that they were gonna have? Like, you think your experience may have been a little different? I believe so. I mean, we get kids here all the time. I mean, this team that we have here is unbelievable. We've probably got 10 to 12 kids that probably have no business playing here, but they believed in what we were selling them, and they believe in the vision of our program. And one of them went up and played in the Northwoods League, and they're like, "Are you going to transfer and leave that place?" And he's like, "No, I love that place. Like, I'm glad I went there over going to, a mid-major Division 1 that had a coaching change." Like, it just goes back to, like, go where you want it. When somebody wants you, you feel a whole lot better about going to play for them, and it just makes that experience a whole lot better.
You took the words right out of my mouth that me and Gio have always said when we were on the college coaching end, and even and now. So now that we're on the opposite end of it, is like you had your three criteria, and I said that I have. I don't disagree with any of them. I go about it a little different way. I think the number one above all, the most important advice I could give any kid is go where you're wanted.
Yeah,
Because if you go somewhere that you're wanted, that coaching staff is going to invest time in you. And
yeah.
in turn, that team is going to invest time in you.
When
And
you get there,
you're gonna yes, and you're gonna become a family. And there's nothing better than going out on the taking the field, playing a child's game with guys that you love, guys that love you, guys that want to see you succeed, a coaching staff that wants to see you succeed,
yeah.
and you can celebrate success together, and you can be upset together and
It's
failure.
deeper than
And
just baseball.
well, 1,000%. I mean,
Yeah,
1,000%. And that's why I think finding the right fit, and like you mentioned, some kids, they just have a horrible experience because they tried to force a fit
yeah,
into a Division 1 or a Division 2 or a school that maybe they were the last guy on that roster and they were just the extra, and then they go and they're miserable and they wonder why. It's probably because not the coach doesn't like you, but like you're just so
the
far
priority
down.
wasn't there.
You're
Yeah,
so far down on the priority list,
yeah,
and and it's like when Pat Kulik went to Miami out of high school, and then he transferred to Nova, and Nova wanted to make him a PO, and he was like, "I want to hit." And I don't know if you ever seen Pat hit or take BP back in the day. Like he was a monster. Then he
yeah,
transfers to Oglethorpe, and you look at his perfect game profile as a 9.5, and he's a University of Miami commit, and he comes to Oglethorpe, and he's like, "This is the best thing that I've ever done in my life." And Pat never left. Like Pat's the one that got me the job at Oglethorpe. Um, Pat is was on staff. Pat would recruit all of his friends to come to Oglethorpe after he left because he had such a good experience. He believed in everything. But Pat was never going to come to Oglethorpe right out of high school. You know what I mean? Like his
yeah.
journey brought him there. And then,
Your past experience kind of help you figure out what you
yeah,
want, and you know what what fit you're looking for. I mean, it is what it is. Sometimes you don't know if you're not a good fit at that level. Hopefully, someone will take you with 10 at bats at a Division 1, or maybe no at bats, or they're taking you on reputation. But the one thing that I I that pains me to see is kids that, like you said, force that fit. I think that's a perfect phrase. You can't force a fit anywhere. If you're trying to force a fit, it's not the right fit. And if you force that fit and you end up leaving, you kind of got to hope someone takes you on reputation or word of mouth, or maybe some numbers you hit in high school or something like that. But it becomes a whole lot harder after that. But I think the kids that we talk about that have gone to other places other than Division 1 have been successful, they understand what they want out of their college experience. And I think it's different for everybody. I mean, the draft has changed. It's 20 rounds. Like, let's be real. Like, you got to be a high school kid or a Power 5 player that's putting up stupid numbers. Like, and even then you still have a hard time, moving on to pro ball. So everything has changed, and I think now more than ever the biggest thing that parents should be worrying about is, where am I going to get my best experience? Where am I going to be wanted the most? And I think when you find that, that's going to be ultimately your best experience.
And usually you'll know, like you'll know. The coach will
Yeah.
be, you'll feel it. Like, I mean, it's been mentioned, not even just by me anymore in this podcast, by other coaches. Like, the recruiting process is so much like dating, so much like the dating process. Like,
Yeah.
people always say, well, when you meant the right one, it's like, and then you think and 6 months in, you're like, well, not really. And then another one comes along and you're like, okay, so the first one definitely was not it, because this one doesn't feel like that one. This is way better. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's a coach is going to make you feel wanted. They're going to, and every coach's mode of communication is different. So like
Sure.
maybe one coach reaches out more, but you're going to feel it. And if the school is a good fit, if that location works, if they have your major, you know, and that coach, you can feel that they want you, that's probably where you should go, or at least be in the top two or three in
Sure.
consideration. So,
Yeah.
and it may come down to money, financially, what have you, but like you're never gonna go wrong going where you're most wanted. You're
Yeah.
trying to force a fit is gonna not work out more often than it will work out. And of
Yeah.
course, like there's always those stories of people like, well, he bet on himself. That's what you should always bet on yourself. And like it's like 1 out of 100, and those happen where
Yeah.
the walk on kid all of a sudden is we got Rudy going on here, and then it's like every kid thinks that can be them, and
Yeah.
let's play a percentage game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So moving, not changing topics, but moving on a little bit. What's the best advice you'd give for a kid like reaching out to college coaches? Let's say they've had a conversation with me and I've said you belong this division, whatever.
Sure.
What's the best way
Uh
for that kid to go about getting seen, getting in contact with
yeah.
coaches
Um
in that division?
well, there's so many avenues to get in contact. You got Twitter. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, dude, I really wanted a kid. I slid into his Instagram DMs before I got a text back from him. So, I mean, you throw Instagram in there, and uh, email's always good. But I think whichever avenue you decide, I mean, I think Twitter and email are probably the two most prominent ones that we're using as coaches. But I think the biggest thing, it doesn't matter which one you do, just be persistent in it. Um, I think one of the things that can kind of make you stand out, I've always something Strom taught me as a young coach when, he was, turning the recruiting over to me. He's like, just make sure you respond to every kid that emails you. He goes, we're at the small school level. We don't really have the ability just to not respond to kids. They've taken the time to reach out and just, hey, we don't have a need at your position in your class, but thanks for reaching out. But, I think coaches at the subdivision 1 level that don't have the money to go out and recruit, they got to use all of their resources. Like, I'm going through my Twitter DMs, I'm going through my emails. Like, the kids' names that I start to see more, I'm like, okay, maybe I should pay attention to this. I'll pop up the video or something like that. But um, I don't know that one way is better than the other. If we're talking about Twitter and email, I think persistence is the key. But it goes back to, well, if I haven't gotten a response back or a DM back, like maybe I'm not reaching out to the right level, or maybe I'm reaching out to the University of Tampa when I should be reaching out to a middle tier Division 2. So I think it's kind of knowing who you are. The other thing I really think players need to be cognizant of is, what time of year are you reaching out? Are you reaching out in, February through June when everybody's playing baseball? Like if you're doing that on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, like I wouldn't be expecting a whole lot of response back because there's a whole lot of baseball to be played. I think, be cognizant of, when coaches are super busy with their teams and, stuff like that. But I don't really have one way or the other. I think I've signed kids from an email I got. I've signed kids from a Twitter DM, an Instagram. Like, I mean, I think it comes from everywhere. I think the biggest thing is just being persistent in what you do. Obviously, there's got to be some level of professionalism. I mean, we get into 20 things that you should do and not do, and emailing or trying to get a hold of a coach, but um, just maintain that level of persistence and professionalism in the process.
And like we talked about, there's so many different ways.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like cold calling, where you may send a bunch of emails, you may send a bunch of DMs that don't get
Yeah.
answered. Um, and not to be discouraged, you need to keep sending them, but also maybe you need to take a look in the mirror and see, like, a- am I shooting too high, or
Yeah.
and whatnot. And sometimes, again, like, just the different ways that kids are recruited is going to be the same. Like, some kids, you're going to be in their Instagram DMs, some kids are Twitter. And as a coach, you realize, like, this kid doesn't answer Twitter DMs, but he answers Instagram DMs.
Yeah.
Or, this kid doesn't text at all, but when I get on the phone with him, we have great conversation. You know what I mean? And that's part of, like, the coaching aspect of it is just getting to know humans and how they interact and how everyone is different.
Yeah.
So I think reaching out all the different ways is huge. Like, I'll get a lot of questions like, should I send, from like a sophomore, should I send this coach an email? I'm like, well, as long as, like, your grammar and all of that are good in the email, it's not going to hurt you to send that coach
Yeah.
an email. It might not help you because he might not see it, or you're not ready to be seen by that coach yet. You know what I mean?
Sure.
If I tell kids attach video, if the video is not good enough for that coach, then that's probably why you're not getting a response. But it's not going to hurt you to reach out. It's just, it doesn't always come with a response, and that
Yeah.
can be
Well, I think,
discouraging.
you know, I think the best way you can get a response back is say, hey, is there any camps or anything that you're going to be attending that I can come to? What better way to get in front of a coach than, um, hey, where are you going to be that I can come so you can see me? Like, even though that player may not be that caliber of player ready for that, but like he's showing them that he wants to be where that coach is.
Well, and every coach will always promote his own camp,
Sure.
because even if that kid's not good enough, like, that coach is probably getting money from his camp. So he's going to say, yeah, well, we're hosting a camp at this time. And I always get the question, like, are camps a good thing to go to? Are they money makers? And I just tell people the same thing every time. Like, both can be true.
Yeah.
Kids are going to be recruited out of this camp. For all the kids that are not recruited out of this camp, it is a moneymaker for the coaches. And you have to realize, like, you have to ask yourself, why am I going to this camp? Is it because I'm young and I need the experience of, there's 20 coaches here holding up a radar gun when I'm throwing, and I'm nervous, so I just threw it over the backstop, and you got to get those jitters out?
Yeah.
Or is it because I throw 92 miles an hour and I've just not been seen enough, so I need to go chuck some balls and these three schools are there and I'm really interested. And I
Yeah.
think both are okay. But you just kind of got to take a look at the camp. What does it entail? Is it a camp that plays games? Is it a camp that just does the showcase?
Yeah.
You know, if your dream two schools are, you know, X and Z, it's a really good idea if you have been told like you can play at that level, go to their camp on campus because
Mhm.
their whole coaching staff will be there.
Yeah.
They'll all get to see you. Whereas if you go to, a third party camp, maybe only one of them go and that coach doesn't really care that day, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe he's there for the paycheck. But I
Mhm.
always tell kids like if you have a dream school and you can play at that school or somewhere like that school, then you need to go to on the camp on campus. You get a feel for the coaching staff,
Mhm.
all that. So
It's essentially an unofficial visit too.
yeah,
You're
they
getting to see
usually
the campus
yep.
and stuff like that. But I don't know when it comes to camps. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's all the above. You know, when people ask me, I kind of it's kind of twofold for me. Like when you're choosing a camp, for me, if if I'm if I'm deciding a showcase to go for my son in 15 years, if those are still a thing in 15 years, you know, the more coaches that are going to be there, I feel like the better opportunity you have of one person liking you. I mean, we say it
Correct.
about pro scouts. It takes one pro scout to like you. Well, same thing in college. It takes one college coach to like you too. So I think, if you don't have a dream school or something like that, attend a camp that's got 15, 20 schools there to increase your chance of just one liking you.
You only need
On
one.
the flip side of that, like say you've narrowed it down and I want to go to Reinhardt or Oglethorpe or Young Harris, three schools, three different levels. Maybe just go to their camp, even if they're the only ones there. It's odds are it's going to be a little bit smaller of a camp.
Mm-hmm.
Odds are they're going to run the camp the way that they evaluate players. You may not run the 60 at one. You may run home to first and get that time. You may play a game at one and not the other. So, there's a lot of things to weigh in on when it comes to showcases. But I think you just got to figure out what you like. I mean, if you have an opportunity to get in front of your dream school and they're the only school there and you have an opportunity that you feel like you can really play there, go.
Yeah,
But if
of
you're kind
course.
of just like hoping to get recruited, but you want to go to a showcase, and I feel like you got to choose one that's got, 15, 20 schools attending them because, like we said, it takes one.
It just takes one. You're just casting a bigger net,
Wider net.
essentially.
Yeah.
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 So again, that goes along the lines of there's no one way to go about this whole recruiting process. There's good practices and things that you should do to increase your chances, but it all boils back down to, and I disagree with you when you say there's a place for everybody. Don't think there's a place for everybody because aside from just the raw numbers of how many kids play high school versus how many kids play college, kids aren't willing to do what it takes. Some kids don't want to go play in Iowa, and some kids aren't good enough. Like we've all been at the showcases where you almost feel bad that a kid is there because it's like this kid did not get.
Well, I mean, my argument to that, like, what if a JV team in Iowa will offer that kid a walk-on spot and he wants to go? I mean, just get there may be a school for you, but if you don't want to go to that school, that doesn't change the fact that there was a school for you.
Yeah,
Like,
but I still think that there's even JV teams that won't offer some kids.
I mean, maybe, but there you could probably find another JV school that would offer that kid. I mean, look, we're talking about, and we're getting into the the ugliness of college baseball. Like,
Yeah, but that's all right.
there's
I mean,
there's there's schools out there that need to meet numbers, and
oh, 100%.
like it may be August, and you may need to sign two more players. Like, if that is going to be a coach losing his job or keeping his job, do
Oh,
you think it matters? He's going to take
he's
whoever it
gonna
is.
take the
Like,
kid.
but it's an opportunity. I mean, it's not to say that the kids are absolutely atrocious that they're going to take, but maybe they see a tool. Maybe it's an NAI maybe it's an NAI school that the kid has one tool and it's speed, and we can pinch run for the catcher. Like, why would I not take a chance on that? If this
Of
kid's a
course.
6'3", six
Of
four
course.
runner, he may not do anything else. He may not be able to get on first base, but if my catcher can get on base, I can put him there. So I think it's preference. Like, do I think there's a place for everybody? Yes. But do I think everybody is going to take those opportunities? No. I think if you were to take level out of it, area of the country out of it, and you just wanted to play college baseball, I feel like you could send enough emails for someone to say, hey, I'll give you an opportunity. It may not be where you want. It may not be in a good program. And it may be miserable, but it still could be an opportunity for you.
Next time I run a baseball camp and you're working it, I'm gonna pick out a kid and I'm gonna pay you $1,000 if you
I
can
will
get
take it.
that kid signed to a baseball program.
I'll take it.
And I will pick. You know who I'll pick.
I don't
Hey,
care who you pick.
you're gonna be able to watch the camp that day, and you're gonna be like, Shep's gonna pick this kid. And we're gonna see if we can get him into college. But I'll give you $1,000 if you can get whatever kid I pick.
Hey, hold on. How do I do this virtual handshake thing on Zoom? Can we do that?
Oh, we don't need to. This is gonna be. This part will not be edited out. This part will be
Okay.
clipped. This part will be saved. Next summer when I'm running that Kennesaw State camp, you're coming. I won't put you on hitting talk.
Thank God.
And
This is me shaking your hand. See the little emoji down there?
no, I can't see it.
That's me shaking your hand.
Oh yeah, I mean I see it on the other Zoom, but it won't be captured on this.
Uh,
This is it. I mean, I just think at some point there is a talent discrepancy, that a threshold that you have to meet.
yeah.
And I again, I mean, we agree that some kids could go play somewhere, but just don't want to sacrifice location or
Yeah.
level, or you're gonna have to go play for the worst rated team in the country and their JV team. And some kids will do that, but I just don't. I don't think it's a spot for everybody because I don't think everybody's willing to.
To do that. And
And,
I
and
agree with that.
some, well, like with some JUCOs, like, and it's not even just JUCOs, some just lower funded schools, like, I don't, I don't think some kids can handle hopping in two 15-passenger vans with 3 loaves of bread that are already made with peanut butter jelly sandwiches and a case of Costco waters, and driving 5 hours, playing 18 innings, eating three peanut butter and jellies and an apple and banana if you're lucky, and then driving home. Like
Nope.
some places, it's the school, like the school I played at Division 2. Very, like, I ate more $5 hot and readies. I never want to eat another one in my life. Like, we were so poor at that school. We'd go down our Florida trip, and the coach would get someone from our coach was a pastor. He would get someone from the church that had their license. They would rent a bus from not a like just a third party person. They'd rent a travel bus. They would rent, the guy from the church would drive us down because it was free. On the way down, a former player owned an indoor batting cage, and we slept on the turf in the batting cage. You remember Rummick from Dayton?
Oh
Have you
yeah.
met him yet?
Rome,
Ask him.
yeah.
He'll tell you. We brought our sleeping bags and our
You played with
pillows.
him?
He coached me when I was at Ohio Valley. He was at my GA for a year, and
That's
we
how y'all traveled, huh?
yeah, we hung out a lot. But on the way to Florida, bro, we stayed in the batting cage. All 40 guys on the roster,
It's like a
and
lock in.
it was awful. Nobody got any, like, we didn't get any sleep because, like, you'd have kids hitting off a tee at like 4 in the morning because they're bored. Other kids are trying to sleep. The head coach went and stayed at house. He comes in the next morning with
Rested.
his Perkins
Coffee.
Pancake House coffee and bag a muffin, and we'd get the little powdered donuts for breakfast, and and water, and we're all angry. Nobody's got any sleep. The bus, the AC didn't work, so we're driving with windows down. We just stayed in a on the turf in a batting cage, and that's not comfortable as much as you think it might be. It's not. And then we get down to Florida, and we stayed in the kind of lodges, 4 to a room. There's one pillow for each kid. Like, it's just, that's what we had to do. We were so poor. I don't think some kids can handle that.
No,
But
no.
for me, I hated that part of it. But like Rome and my buddy RT that I met there, like, we're all in each other's weddings because that friendship that we built with each other is like, it's never, you can't build anything better than that.
Yeah. No.
So
No.
yeah, man, we stayed in batting cages. It was miserable.
That's whack,
I've got
dude.
some stories on stories on stories about that place.
Where was the batting cage at? What state?
North Carolina.
Oof.
Luckily it was like it was big, so there was a half of an infield and 4 half of batting cages. So like there was enough room, but people were playing like flag football and shit in the indoor infield area. So then there was like 3 batting cages that people would sleep in, but then the 4th batting cage, people were like, just save this one for people that if they want to get some swings in. I'm like,
Let's just
brother,
get some sleep.
brother, yeah. And this is the worst part. We get down there and we're playing a Division II school from down there. I don't remember who it was. We're going to take BP on the field before the game. We realize we didn't bring balls. Everybody scrounged around. The bus driver went and got 2 things of balls from Dick's, and it was like the mesh bucket from Dick's with the really plastic balls, and we had about 13 balls people got out of our thing. So we were trying to hit BP on field with 35 balls, and none of our coaches could throw BP. So of those 35 balls, I would tell you 30 of them per round were in the back of the thing. It was so embarrassing. Their coaching staff brought out buckets and buckets and buckets of balls. And without even asking, they just turned the L screen around, scooted it up. They were like, why don't you guys just front toss?
Let me stop you here.
I was so
I don't know
embarrassed.
much about the program you played for, but I
was so
know a lot
embarrassed.
about you. This is a perfect fit for shit.
Yeah.
This was your fit.
Yeah.
Like, none of that surprises me about a place that you played at. None of it.
Nope.
None of it.
Nope.
Rome a little bit. I know Rome a little bit. That don't seem like his
But see, like, Rome's in the same way in sense of me that, like, we just went out and played. Like, we didn't care. Like, I hit lead off. I had a great career. I hit like 330 in college, like, but we sucked.
Hey,
we sucked. I mean,
you had a good college career and you made some lifetime friends that you still talk to.
Dude, I hit leadoff, and like 1 year my OBP, my on base percentage was like 450 in the leadoff spot, and I think I scored less than 20 runs in a 35-40 game schedule, getting on base almost half the time. Like, we were bad. But they offered me 50% scholarship, and sometimes you just do whatever you got to do to play college baseball.
That's exactly right.
I couldn't afford to go to the school that I went to the year before, and I was playing Legion ball that summer, and I had the 2-week span of my life. And he offered me 50%, and I was like, my parents were like, you should take it. I was like, you think I should not go back to W and J? And they're like, yeah, because we were going to tell you that we can't afford W and J another year. It was like 55,000. They're like, we can't afford you to go. So like, this was a blessing, and a prayer. Like, you talk about doors being open, and a prayer that's been answered. So yeah, man, it was an experience. But I met a lot of my friends that will be friends forever, and whatnot. So anyways, we'll wrap up today with a little lightning round. So I'll ask you quick questions. This is so unimportant, but it's become one of my favorite parts. Like, Gio will listen, and he'll comment on like what coaches' answers are. It's kind of funny.
What's up, Gio?
You put pineapple on pizza?
Heck yeah,
Good answer. Artificial turf or natural grass?
both. We have both at Reinhardt. I like the combination of both. But if I had to pick one, natural.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No,
Are you pro or anti shift?
pro.
Pitching duel or offensive clinic?
Offensive clinic.
Day or night games?
Night.
Big league chew or double bubble?
Double bubble.
Best sunflower seed flavor?
Sweet chili.
Gatorade flavor?
Lemon lime. Yellow.
Favorite baseball player?
Oh, it's loaded. Chipper Jones was my favorite player growing up.
You have any pregame superstitions?
No.
Big Green Monster or Chicago Ivy?
Big Green Monster.
What's your favorite MLB ballpark?
Truest. I have not been to many of the new ones.
Adam Sandler or Vince Vaughn?
Adam Sandler.
Fucking wrong answer. Moyer, you got anything to plug? You got any camps coming up? You want to, give a shout out or anything?
No. Just appreciate the opportunity. I mean, I think recruiting is one of the most stressful things, high school players and, college players go through. And, just thankful to be able to share some of my experiences, where I've been, what I've been through, and, what I think has worked for me and other players that I've come in contact with. So just, thankful for the opportunity to come on and shoot the bull and chat about it.
Yeah, man. I know that you and I could probably sit down and BS for an hour, and if we took the filter off and whatnot, I could turn it up to 3 and probably get pretty interesting. But before we go, again, just shout out to lineupcards.com. You can design and print 4-part custom lineup cards, 11x17 dugout cards. Jeff actually uses these guys at Reinhardt.
JCap is the man.
They're awesome. They're super easy to work with. They'll get you taken care of. Just go over to lineupcards.com, submit your team logo. You can even put a roster on there, and they'll send you a proof, and then you can get it printed and they'll ship them out to you. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you haven't, please subscribe, like, share. You can find us on Spotify and Apple as well for just the audio version only. Until next week, everybody, peace.